And welcome back to Parents Canada Talk Radio on Saga 960. We are here with Jason. Did you want to?
That's me. That's Jason Thompson. That's
Jason Thompson. And I'm Lisa Durante. And today we're talking about a bit of a heavy topic. It's about babies in pain. But before we get into that, Jason, I know that this has been probably a little bit of a tough week for you. I know we're coming close to
I'm already
back to
welling up. This is ridiculous. I haven't even started. It's the Jason Thompson Therapy Radio Hour. That's what I call the Parents Canada Talk Radio at home, because I feel like I get it all out on the air. So really, like, it's been a fascinating summer. I've mentioned a whole bunch of times that the boy is off to university in a couple of weeks. So he went back to his mom's place yesterday. So in a way, yesterday may have been the very last day. Was it yesterday? It was Monday. Monday would have been the very last day that we actually spent a full day together in a household, sort of thing. And it's been, it's just been, I've been hyper aware of this all summer. So we have, kind of our touchstones that we have all year. We go to the Sound of Music Festival in Burlington in June. We go to the X, in August, and, the road trip, all that sort of stuff. We do these sorts of things. And I'm very aware that these could be the last time. And it's actually really colored it. It's been bittersweet throughout for me in an interesting way. Well, what I found really fascinating, and this is a good, I don't know, maybe this is good advice for parents, is, like knowing that this could be the last time that he's ever actually living in the house. I'm sure he'll be back around Christmas and things like that. But after that, co-op means that he could be California, he could be Calgary, fingers crossed, all that sort of stuff. Is spending the time over the last couple of weeks really, I probably relayed back to him every single great story memory that I had of him, and I had I had his sisters do that as well, so that he could really take that away. Now, it sounds kind and sweet and all that sort of stuff, and I wrote him some letters on how to succeed in life and things like that. But the truth is none of that is for him. All of that's for me, right? It's the opportunity for me to reverently get the opportunity to say goodbye. He's it's so funny. Dad's chatty and gregarious and all that sort of stuff. And the boy he's stoic. He really is. I'll go on a rant and this is his response. All right. That's his entire response, raging. So for me, it was a really good way. And particularly this weekend, one of the things that he's really been looking forward to is building a gaming computer. And so we did it together. And it was a really nice opportunity to just have that last thing for a kid who, once upon a time, we would build these very elaborate Lego sets. And for me, becomes that perfect touchstone, and then we went out for chicken wings. So it's really was the last scene of the movie that you want. Yeah. And then now I need to switch, because that's the thing that I've really struggled with the most out of all of this is the fact that this is meant to be a joyous time. It's his chapter. It's his new step forward. And at the same time, I've been really struggling with kind of the idea of that it's also the end of the chapter for me in this way. In the future, there are going to be amazing things. And I know lots of parents have reached out to me and lots of friends have reached out to me in the last little while just to add their support, knowing who I am, know how I react with him and things like that. So it's great. Today, he's off for his driver's test. So fingers crossed in 2 hours in Huntsville that he'll nail that. Otherwise he will be coming home to practice for the next driver's test, and all of this is moot. Anyway, so there's my weekend. Thank you very much for asking. It really means the world to me that you do that.
No, this is a big milestone, saying, that goodbye. But, if you look at the kids that I know that have gone to school, they all seem to come home. So I have a feeling that he may come back under your roof once again.
I asked him straight out, because he's got between two homes, he's got 6 brothers and sisters.
Okay.
I'm like, are you going to miss nothing? Like, it's not that he's desperate to get out. It's just, he just doesn't attach in that same way. But he does. I can see it. I can see it here and there, sort of thing.
Yeah,
so.
He probably does it in his own way.
That's right.
And it just may not be your way. So
no, I've been trying to crack that code for quite some time. Yeah. So there you are. And how about, that's my week. Yeah. How's your week going?
My week has been great. So my daughter actually, so you're saying goodbye. I got to finally welcome back my oldest daughter from
Yay.
camp. I picked her up on Friday. And it was, with my younger daughter, when I picked her up, it was like, I think I started running towards her before I fully parked the car.
So yours is like another scene in the movie.
Yeah. With my youngest, it was like I was running towards her and she was running towards me and the big hug and like she didn't want to let go of me and I didn't want to let go of her. And then my older daughter, who's only 2 years older, spent 14 days away from me, kind of like walks up and says, "Hi, Mommy." And I'm like, hugs? What about hugs? And so then I kind of just enveloped her into a hug. And it was almost like I was annoying her.
Right.
I was like, "No, you can't do this to me." And then all of a sudden she started and like I just took a look at her face and she was just changed in 14 days. And I was like, "You're taller." She was much dirtier and stinkier. And then she's come home with all these not really new ideas, but this self-confidence. Like she announced that she wants to become a vegetarian of sorts. She's trying to figure out what exactly a vegetarian means, and so she's kind of she's defining it for herself.
Right.
So there's been a lot of talk about, okay, what is it what does that mean to you? Why are you doing it? And so because she knows us, she knows that she has to kind of come to us with almost a business case on why she wants to do something and why it's in line with her principles.
It's interesting. Genevieve, actually, her oldest daughter, when she was 11, announced that she wanted to be a vegetarian. Genevieve said, "Okay, you need to map out how you're going to get nutrition."
Yeah,
and
that's my concern.
Listen, she's 20 now, still a vegetarian.
Yeah. So she's that's our concern right now. And last night was the first meat meal because Mondays we usually don't have meat, and so
it's minestrone night, isn't it?
It is.
See, I remember.
It totally is. And so she was fine with that. And then yesterday I had made ribs, and she was like, "I'm not eating that." And I said, "Well, you got to find something on the alternatives list that will replace the nutrients in this." And so she found some edamame, and she made that, and then she had some nuts after dinner.
How do you feel about all this?
I'm okay with it because it is something that she's an animal lover. And so it has been since the third grade that she's been talking about this. And each time I keep saying that I'm not going to cook differently. Like I can't make a second meal. That's always been my thing. Even when they were small, I didn't make a kid's meal and an adult meal.
Right.
So I am just making one meal. And so she has to take part. So we'll just see how it goes. But we have even talked about different scenarios. Like what if you're at a friend's house and all they have is hamburgers? Are you not going to eat the hamburger? And she does enjoy eating. And so she's like, "Well, then I'll make a choice." She's like, that day and how I'm feeling, how hungry I am. She's like, I don't want to put anybody out.
Well, one of the things, if this helps at all, is we would send the kids who were vegetarians to, if you're going over for a barbecue, we send over some meatless burgers with them as well. So try and make it easier for the
Okay.
others.
That's a good idea.
You know what? You've actually come up with a great idea, which is if you've got ideas around, how you've got a kid who's a vegetarian and that sort of stuff and wants to explore it, hit us up on @ParentsCanada. We want to hear from you on Instagram and Facebook and that sort of stuff. Give us your suggestions and things like that. We love that.
Yeah.
Crowdsource, yay!
Yeah. How do you keep them healthy? Because my fear
hard
is
thing, right?
she's 9 years old. A girl, and this time, over the next couple of years, iron is going to be a big thing. So that's the one that concerns me.
That's a really good concern.
Yeah.
So that's great. I will do some asking in the offline hours as well to see what I can bring to you and that sort of stuff. So fantastic.
So what are we talking about today, Jason?
As you said, we've got a heavy topic today.
Topic.
It's the idea of pain, and we're talking about physical pain. Particularly, we're going to focus in our second segment on newborns and that sort of stuff. But as soon as you hear a concept like this, it immediately have a visceral reaction as a parent, right? Whether it's the time. I remember the times with all my kids when they go in for their first needle. I remember a friend of mine saying that their wife had said, they're not a whole person anymore because they've been kind of breached and that sort of stuff. But the focus on the pain is a really important thing. We're going to talk a lot today about what you can do as a parent. And I've got my own story. Like I've got a bunch of them. Everything from I have a 13-year-old who has literally those growing pains, which because none of my other kids went through it. it's an experience, right? To say, she's going to bed every night with like aching legs and that sort of stuff. You take her to the doctor and things like that, but the key was to not minimize the pain. Mm-hmm. But in a larger scenario, my partner and I have a son who has gone through 3 heart surgeries over the years. Spoiler alert to everybody who's listening right now. He is doing great and cartwheels. He is like an Avenger coming out of these things. But the experience, particularly for parents, is pretty scary. And I remember the first surgery included a moment at the end of the recovery period. So you have the surgery, was to close a hole in the heart. When successful, sick kids, incredible. But they leave intubation tubes in the chest, and the tubes are really meant to drain kind of the fluid from around the heart. So that's great. And if you go to sick kids, you have a pre-op day, and in the pre-op day, in 7 hours they avalanche you with stuff. But you know what they don't tell you about? They don't tell you about what to expect with the removal of the intubation tubes, because you think to yourself, if you've got some sort of significant pain, they may medicate. No, what they do is they bring 4 nurses into the room. The 4 nurses hold the child down, and they slowly slide the tubes out, and it is, incredibly, incredibly painful. And so you're watching this. So the thing is like, as a parent, the moment I realized what this was going to be is when the nurse pulled me aside in the room. I really wish I'd been prepped a little bit more beforehand, because we talked about other things, like how to get over the fear of the surgery and things like that. Because, my role as dad is, I stand in the room, and I did my best. I use the programming that we've used before, which is about deep breathing, about being, and this is a big one, about being reverential to the pain. If he needs to scream when he's in pain, scream. Like, do what you need to do, and understand that there's somebody here for you. Here's the worst, not the worst part, but the most interesting part is he had to go through it again. So 2 years later, he had a much larger open heart surgery, and he knew the tubes were going to be there. And we talked about this after the surgery, because I don't want to say PTSD, but it definitely has a kind of a residue around you. And so he would think about it and get afraid. And so we worked our way towards what this was going to be. We knew that, using the old Winston Churchill line, the only way, around hell is through it, is that he knew he was going to have to do this. So we worked on breathing techniques. We really talked about his feelings about that. I promised him a PlayStation 4, which, again, the PlayStation isn't going to get, like, in the moment when they're removing the tubes, you can't go, don't forget PlayStation 4, because that's not going to do it. But in the weeks coming up to it, it mitigates the fear a little bit, I think. And perhaps our guest today will tell us, maybe I picked the wrong path. But ultimately, what happens through all of that is we do get through it. And he does, at the end, you're all over him and hugging him. And even when he's there, right, with the chest, you're touching him, and using touch is a really positive and powerful way to get there. So that's a bit of a journey, but that's my experience with the most extreme level of pain for a kid. And really, you're trying to generate a sense of trust as they grow that life is not going to be entirely painful.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to talk about with Dr. Marsha Campbell-Yeo. And, she talks about how, what you just said, that you as a parent can do things you can't take away the pain, but you can help make them manage it a bit better and more successfully. And then there are some things that can actually reduce the pain for them and help them recover quicker, which I'm really looking forward to hearing about, because kids, even kids, they have to get their immunization. So there's pain. That's part of life, even unfortunately from, the newest newborns. So how can we help them?
Are your kids afraid of needles? Like, do you get that kind of feedback?
No, not at all. So and I don't know how it happened, because I'm the one who's like cringing, and I'm holding their hands and I'm squeezing them, and I'm like, just squeeze me back if it really hurts. But they don't. My oldest kid, actually, I was 1 year, the first year that she got the flu shot that wasn't a shot, but was when it was the nasal inhale. She looked at the doctor and was like, I came here for a shot. And she was so upset that she didn't get a shot.
That really is a superhero right there.
Yeah, so they both are, like, they've had their ears pierced. They're very stoic. Not sure where they get it from. Not me. Even dentist's office, they're amazing with it.
The one piece of reading that I took away, which was kind of the large abstract article that our producer sent us, is this idea of modeling. Is that if you model fear of pain, your kids will pick up. And it goes back to that old line. You know the old line, like when your kid's outside and they stub their toe? And, again, this is the old stereotype, is one parent, will immediately like surround them and with their arms and hug them and that sort of stuff, and they burst into tears. And then the other parent might be like, let them walk it off, sort of thing. This article seemed to suggest a little bit that some of that, again, you got to pick your spots, but some of that idea of allowing the child to understand and kind of accept and deal with it. If you freak out, they'll freak out, I think is essentially what they're saying.
Well, and I think that's where I'm most confused, because my modeling is always like, I have the pain look on my face. I'm like, oh, that had to have hurt. And I'm all over them. And then they're like, oh, it's okay. Like,
back to our thing. We don't know what the heck's going on in the world with this and that sort of stuff. So we are going to come back after the break with our guest, who's a certified neonatal nurse practitioner. I just love saying that. And we're really going to talk about the pain, what they actually experience, because we're learning a whole bunch in the research. And again, that idea of what role can you play as a parent, particularly in kind of maternal-led interventions. We want to hear more from you. So, if you've got some stories, some experience with pain, we want you to hit us up on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Parents Canada, or you can call us, 416-640-0200. We will be back with more Parents Canada Radio on News Talk Saga 960. Welcome back to Parents Canada Talk Radio. I'm Jason Thompson, and I am here with
Lisa Durante.
All right, Lisa, are you ready?
Yes.
I know this is a as parents, this can be a particularly emotional issue. So let's get right. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just a crybaby, so this one really gets me.
Listen, we all want to. That's the whole thing. We want to do the best for our kids. So our guest today is Dr. Marshall. Did it already. Dr. Marsha Campbell-Yeo. She's a PhD prepared neonatal nurse practitioner. She's also a professor at the School of Nursing at Dalhousie University and a clinician scientist at the IWK Health Center. She is also part of the Canadian Institute of Health Research funded new investigator. She's got her lab, and in her lab, which is primarily funded by the CIHR and the Canadian Foundation of Innovation, it's called Mechanisms, Outcomes, and Mobilization of Maternally Led Interventions for Newborn Care. It's got a great little acronym there, MOMLINK. And what they do is they examine the effectiveness of maternal-led interventions to improve the outcomes of healthy and at-risk infants. And we're going to talk about both of those today, related to things like stress and pain and neurodevelopment. And she really talks about this idea of improving the uptake of pain-relieving interventions by both parents and healthcare providers through innovative strategies and e-health technology. So there's a lot going on there. I'm really, really fascinated. Dr. Campbell-Yeo, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Jason. It's such a pleasure to be here today. I always welcome any opportunity to share our research to help parents reduce their baby's pain.
You're in the right place.
Yeah. And we're so excited to be chatting with you because, we always say, Jason and I, that we learn so much from this show. And I have to say that this is the topic that I just walked into with one thought, and that is that babies don't remember pain, but you have definitely already shown me a new way of thinking. So when, correct me, when it comes to babies in pain, do they feel pain? Like, does your research show that, and do they remember it?
Well, you're not the only one, Lisa. For a long time, healthcare providers and parents really believed, and still some believe today, that babies didn't feel or remember pain. But we know that that's not the case. Our research and others have definitely shown that babies both feel pain the same as you and I, but also remember that pain, even minimal amounts. They remember the next time.
No, really.
That idea of the first year, all the things that are happening as the baby grows in the first year, it makes me feel like I want to go back and do it all over again. I may have missed something. I'm curious to know about some of the, you talked about that idea of kind of babies remembering this sort of stuff. What kind of long-term impact does that happen in terms of experiencing pain?
So there's differences in what this pain does for babies. So, for example, if we talk first about maybe the most vulnerable babies that people first think about, they think, babies who are born premature or require intensive care and have lots of procedures. Well, those babies, that repeated pain can actually change the way that their brains develop, how they learn and communicate with others later in life, and how they manage pain and emotional stress later on. For those babies, though, it is often a big surprise to people to think even the healthiest of babies who don't need intensive care, but even our most healthiest babies have on average about 18 to 20 exposures to injections even in their first year to 18 months.
Oh, my goodness.
And what we know that this exposure can alter how they react to later injections. So those babies, with each injection, can mount different responses and become more distressed if they're not managed properly.
Mm-hmm. And so are you finding, I know your research is very much limited to the first year to infants, but does the impact have, you were saying that it has the impact longer term, so like as they get older, 5, 6, that they're still remembering that, and that may color when they go back in for that needle before kindergarten?
So every baby is different, every family is different, but we do know that about 1 in 4 children, and actually about 1 in 10 adults, have needle-related fears. Oh. And so there is some evidence to tell us that if we manage early exposure to these painful procedures, which definitely are necessary and keep your baby healthy, but if you use really evidence-based strategies to reduce that pain, this can actually alter and improve the way that they are able to handle needles later on in life, both with respect to how much pain they feel, but emotionally how they're able to cope with that pain.
And as we're seeing as parents, the EQ and the emotional side is playing we're learning that it's playing such a heavy role in the way that we parent, the way we manage our kids and things like that. And so there's good news because, as you said, we now have a clearer picture, a better understanding of the way that babies experience pain. We can actually do something about that. You mentioned evidence-based strategies. Can you talk a little bit about the sorts of things that parents can do to be able to impact?
So, absolutely. So, I think what's surprising is, again, parents always assume that their healthcare provider is going to do everything during a medical procedure and often maybe stand back. But what's exciting is just how powerful parents can be. And what our research has shown is simple techniques. So, you can break it down into sort of what you can do for your baby, what you can give your baby, and how you can act around your baby for needle-related procedures. So I can just go through and give you some examples.
If you could.
Okay. So what can you do? So if you have a very young baby, one of the most powerful things that you can do during their first needles that they have maybe immediately after birth or in the hospital for blood collections or immunizations in their first year, up to 18 months, you could breastfeed your baby. That evidence has demonstrated that breastfeeding before, during, and after reduces pain response by about 30 to 40%.
Wow.
And holding your baby, say you're not breastfeeding your baby, but even holding your baby close to your skin, containing them, swaddling them, holding them upright. What we know is you don't want to lay them down and you don't want them to be away from you. So being held upright, close to you, breastfeeding, or at least contained is a powerful thing that you can do.
I found that the YouTube video that you actually have produced was very, very moving and very eye-opening. Yes. I think as a dad to be able to understand skin-to-skin contact. 10 what is it? Was it like between 30 minutes and even as short as 2 minutes beforehand can have a positive impact.
Yeah, so I think you're talking about our Power of Parents Touch video that you can easily access on YouTube. You just punch it, type in Power of a Parent's Touch. And this video really does demonstrate that moms, but not just moms, dads too, holding a baby up to your skin, very close diaper-clad baby held against your chest, can also significantly reduce pain by about 30 to 40%. Moms can do it, dads can do it, and even other loved ones can do it too.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, just for adoptive parents or even, a lot of families have grandparents who are heavily involved and engaged in raising children. So they too play a role. They can provide that kind of comfort too.
Your question is some of the same questions that people asked us. When we first did our research, we looked only at moms. And dads and adoptive parents said, hey, what about us? And so we did a series of studies that compared moms versus alternative providers. And what we found was people like dads or grandmas or adoptive moms or dads holding, again, it's the skin-to-skin contact. So you put your baby just in a diaper up next to your bare chest, so kind of belly to chest, and hold them close, put a blanket over you, and that allows, so if they needed a needle in their leg, they can still have a leg, a thigh to do that. The healthcare provider can easily access that, or if they were having some blood, say from their heel or their hand. And this is a very, very powerful strategy that can be done even in babies who are unwell and very premature.
One of the things you had just said was that there's a lot of that testing that happens just as a baby is born. And I have to say that maybe I was just so focused on myself, I didn't realize that was happening to my child, that she was getting pricked and blood tests were being drawn. So how can parents kind of advocate for their children so that they can hold them while that is happening rather than it being outside of the room? Because I'm pretty sure, thinking back, that I was not there for those procedures. So what can parents do?
Lisa, what happened is when my son was born, the mom said, you stay with him when they take them out of the room. That was one of the things that happened.
Yeah, that was the order to my husband. But I have to say that I'm quite in the fog. I don't quite know what happened. But
Obviously.
Yeah, so, again, I don't think everyone realizes that every baby in the world, within usually about the first hour after birth, has an injection in their thigh. And this is for vitamin K. And this injection can certainly be done easily laying on a mother's chest or father's chest, simply on their chest in skin-to-skin contact, or while during breastfeeding. And it's easy for healthcare providers to do that there. You just need to know that that's something you'd like to do. We know that with current practices, having your baby close to you immediately after birth is best practice anyway, so why would you take them away to have that procedure done?
Yeah.
Similarly, every baby also gets a blood test, usually in their heel, in the first 24 to 36 hours to test for any type of potential metabolic disease that can be treated. And so this also, parents should be aware. They can hold their babies, skin-to-skin contact, or breastfeed their babies, and just let healthcare providers know that that's what you like to do.
Okay.
That's great.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. And we would love for you to stick around. We have some questions that came in through social media from @ParentsCanada. But if you have calls, audience, if you have any questions for Dr. Marsha, please give us a call. We're at 416-640-0200. And we'd love for you to stick around so that you can answer some of those questions for us. Is that good?
That's great.
Great. Okay, so you are listening to Parents Canada Talk Radio on Saga 960, and we're going to be right back with some questions. Hello, and we are back. You are listening to Parents Canada Talk Radio on Saga 960. And we have been chatting with Dr. Marsha Campbell-Yeo, and she has been sharing her incredible insights based on research that she has done on how parents can really have the power to help their babies through pain. So, Dr. Campbell-Yeo, we received a few questions through social media. I put this out there because I have to say, and I think I shared this with you yesterday when we were on a call, that now that my kids are 9 and 7, I'm slowly forgetting those parts. I look back at their infant years with rose-colored glasses. And so I was really interested in what will come in from, our audience. And so I have two questions that we've received. One is about colic babies. I myself had a colic baby, but I always try to forget about it. So her question is, do his cries mean that he's really in pain? And then what can she do to help him?
Well, that's such a important question that so many parents have. I wish I'm going to tell you some things that we can do to help with that, but really, we really don't know the cause of colic, and we don't really know the best way to treat it.
Okay.
And sadly, it's pretty common with 10 to 40% of babies having it. And just so people recognize what we're talking about, sort of colic is usually like inconsolable crying in an otherwise healthy baby that lasts for prolonged periods of time over weeks.
Yeah.
So when you're the person who has the question, the parent talks about pain. Well, it does if babies actually have a measure of pain when they are crying. It do look like this colic does cause them to have moderate pain.
Okay.
And so one of the things that we want to do is try to think about how you could comfort that baby. So what I can tell you what doesn't work first.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's a good way to start, because a lot of people want to give medications such as like methicone, which our research has definitely shown that this really doesn't work. They want to use something sometimes called cyclamen, but that's actually unsafe for babies who are less than 6 months.
Oh, okay.
So you really want to stay away from things like that. So what can you do? Well, the most important thing you want to do is make sure that your baby actually has colic and not another problem.
Okay.
So it's something that you should see a healthcare provider, and that colic is really a diagnosis of exclusion, and so want to rule out anything else. The other good thing for parents to know is it's generally self-limiting. So it's important for them to recognize that this will likely subside over a period of time. That doesn't help them with their distress at the time. So then what other things can they do? They can comfort their baby, again, hold their baby as much as possible, carry them around in carriers, try to use some of the 5 S's, so let them suck, swaddle, soothe, and sort of swish and sing and talk to their baby. Okay, so those kind of comforting things. The last 2 things that I'll mention are there is some limited information. So I can't tell you it'll work for everyone, and there's more research that's being done. But there is some belief that it's an alteration in the baby's microflora, and so maybe probiotics may help.
Okay.
And the other thing is potentially limiting. Some people think it's just a transient immature gut sensitivity to lactose, so maybe trying to breastfeed your baby is best, and maybe limiting some of lactose can be. It's still very limited information. But most importantly, and I will finish with, it can be so stressful that if you are becoming really unable to cope with it, put your baby down and just take a breath and know that it's self-limiting, and as long as your baby is otherwise well, that just you need a break as well, and can just...
Those moments I remember. Those that really, when you do have to kind of just take a walk around because you're sleep deprived and all of that sort of stuff. I think it's great advice.
And seek help. Know it's time limited. Leverage as many people who can help as possible so that you can get sleep and you can take care of yourself.
That statement you just made, that know it's time limited, that's a really good one for new parents is, just remember this will pass.
Yeah, it's usually in the first few weeks, the 6 weeks. And really know it will pass, get some help, and, comfort your baby as much as possible, but also recognize that you need support too.
So I also got some social media feedback, and one of them was one of those classic kind of stereotype biases that you wonder based on some of the reading whether it's true, whether it's not true. And this was the quote I got from my friend, who's probably not listening because she's in Boston, but I'm gonna play the tape for her afterwards. So what she said in the comment was, babies are not children. And I think she was talking about outside of that 12-month range, but she said children are like new cars. When the first scratch appears, you get worried, but after that, it's like meh. That's literally what she wrote. So how do we overcome some of that that kind of thinking, that kind of statements that we have that, you do have a role to play in pain management, but, again, knowing that we've read some research that says, maybe overdoing it can be overdoing it. Like, what kind of advice would you give to parents there?
Well, I think what we said earlier, that's very important to recognize that early experiences to pain that's not managed well can lead to, again, poor outcomes with respect to how they manage later pain, how sensitive they are, and certainly, even vaccine hesitancies can be related to fears that can be prevented in early life. So I think it's so important for families to be proactive. So again, what you want to do, though, is some of the things as a parent, it is about you being calm. So I will agree with your friend that, a parent who is very stressed themselves, a child feels that. So even just taking some big, deep breaths yourself to be calm, your child feels that helps them.
I have a little cheat for that, which is anytime I hear a crash or a stubbed toe or whatever, rather than reacting, the first thing that I ask is, are you okay?
Yeah, or things like, one of the things we sometimes hear a lot, people don't even recognize, they always go, it will be okay, it will be okay, it will be over soon. But, if you start saying that too quickly to your child before a needle, if they're not worried, all of a sudden they're thinking, oh, maybe I should be worried because you're telling me I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
So really you want to, be very like we've done ways to reduce your pain. You're going to have a needle, but distract them. Distraction is a wonderful tool with respect to, especially in infants over about 6 months. Rattles, your voice, sound, and talking about other things other than the needle.
Mm-hmm.
Like a PlayStation 4, for example.
Great idea.
Yeah.
The other thing I just want to mention, too, that parents don't realize, that they can purchase topical anesthetics that are safe for even the youngest babies at your local pharmacy.
Oh, really?
And this numbing cream you can put on before the needle, and so it dulls the pain of the needle going through the skin. And there's different kinds, and they work anywhere from about 30 to 60 minutes before. The instructions are on the, there can come in either a cream or a gel or a patch. If your child is less than 12 months, usually you can put it on a leg. If it's greater than 12 months, put it on an arm, and plan ahead. Because if your child asks your practitioner how many needles your baby's going to have, and you'll know whether you need to put them on both legs or both arms.
That is great. Yeah, and I think that actually answers our next question that we received. So a mom is saying that the last immunizations that she gave her son she said the experience was horrible. And now she's getting ready to getting ready for the 18-month shots. And she says it's next month. And so that is definitely something that topical anesthetic is something she can do. Are there other things that she can do to make it better for him? Maybe being 18 months, could she talk to him a little bit more? Or what else can she do?
So again, I'm going to come back to those sort of things. So if she's still breastfeeding, she can breastfeed. Mm-hmm. If not, what she wants to make sure is the baby is upright. So hold it close to her like a hug.
Okay.
A hugging hold. She wants to distract and be calm herself. So if it's been a really bad experience, she's likely going to be just as stressed as her baby is going to remember. Mm-hmm. So if she's really stressed, that baby's going to even remember it more. So use the magic cream, which we call magic cream or numbing cream. So we're going to put numbing cream on. This isn't going to hurt. Going to use comforting, hugging hold. Going to provide distraction. So if the baby likes to look at things, maybe on your phone, or blow bubbles is a great way. Something new that they haven't seen before is all great ways to do that, to help relieve the baby's pain. And one other thing that people sometimes use are sugar water. in babies as old as 18 months. Usually it's more effective up to about 12 months, in which you can give a small amount of sugar water just before the needle, and it seems to reduce the baby's pain.
Okay, that is amazing.
I know that my 8-year-old is driving north on the 400 right now with her mom, and is probably listening to this and is like, you got to pull over and get some of that cream for the next time.
Yeah.
She's gone through needles, but warts as well.
Over the counter. Ask for a topical anesthetic that works for before immunizations. And again, the biggest thing is being prepared. Know how many needles, and to give yourself about 30 to 60 minutes. And one of the great things that parents can do is you want to make sure it comes off within that 30 to 60 minutes as well. So you can just write a little the time that you put it on, and the little usually there's a little dressing that comes with it.
Oh, okay.
And then you just know, and then your child's ready.
So you have this incredible wealth of knowledge. We want to learn, as we're wrapping this up, we want to learn where we can learn more about the work that you're doing.
Sure. Well, what's also great is there's so many resources now for parents and healthcare providers. So again, the Power of Parents Touch, our YouTube video, is a great resource for especially young babies, newborns. We also have, of course, solutions for kids in pain. It's kidsinpain.ca.
Okay.
AboutKidsHealth.ca, or our lab as well, the mumlink.ca. All of them are excellent resources. And lastly, Children's Healthcare Canada has a great resource for parents as well.
I can't stress enough, if you're a new parent and you're struggling with this, you're learning about this. This is, I wish when I was new, I want to go and have another kid just to try all this stuff out. But I think that this was an incredibly nourishing experience.
I just will say, parents are so powerful, and they just need to talk to their healthcare providers about what they can do to manage their baby's pain, and what they do in early life will really set the stage for many later experiences with pain that their children will undergo.
Fantastic. I cannot thank you enough for being here today.
Thank you very, very much. Yeah, this has been great.
It's my pleasure. You take good care.
Thank you. And for everyone else, we want to hear your thoughts. I'm sure you've got some insights and stories that you can share. So share those thoughts with us on social media at Parents Canada. We are going to be back to share some resources and tell you what Lisa and I learned today. You're listening to Parents Canada Talk Radio on News Talk Saga 960. Welcome back to Parents Canada Talk Radio, a highly emotional, but I got to tell you, very, very practical advice for new parents today. This was great. So, Lisa, what would you learn from all of these conversations?
Well, I think the thing that I'm walking away with is just the power that parents have to support their babies. Oftentimes, you kind of feel like you have no control, especially if your child is unwell. But even when they are healthy and they just experience the pain of either immunizations or hurting themselves in some way, that we have power that can really not only help them in the moment to manage the pain, but to get over it more quickly, and then on how they can, and the longer term impact that will have. My daughter, I was saying that my older daughter especially, she can really manage pain. She just, I'm not sure, sometimes we think she's just made out of steel. Like, she's absolutely fine. She's had, little procedures like in her mouth. She's had like things having to be taken off, and I am like on her, holding her hand, telling her to squeeze me if there's pain, and she doesn't feel anything. Teeth have been pulled, needles. She really enjoys those for some odd reason. But the only time that she actually felt pain was when, and then she expressed it, was she cut her lip open when she was about 4. And this goes back to what, Dr. Campbell-Yeo was saying in how you can say the words. So we were at Sick Kids, and Sick Kids is fantastic. And so they were testing out this new, she had to get stitches, but they were testing out this new glue. And she turned to me and she said, this glue supposedly is not going to cause any pain. So she turned to my daughter and said, this is not going to hurt at all. It's way better than stitches. And they put it on. And my daughter, who was always so stoic, screamed out in pain.
Oh, no.
And I was like, so I had to, I made sure that everybody stopped, and I'm like, what's going on? And she was like, this isn't supposed to hurt. And she was 4, so she used her words. She was like, it's stinging so bad. And then because they started, they had to finish. Right. And so that, and I think it was the setup was, this isn't going to hurt. And then it did hurt, and it was very upsetting to her, and she still remembers it. Like, she will bring it up every now and then she's like, yeah, it was like that glue. She's like, don't ever believe them. And, so I think that's set up in that we have that power, no matter if it's the healthcare provider, which I'm not putting any blame on the doctor. I think she really was under she was hoping that that's what it was, and they were testing it out, and I agreed. But it's also what we can say to babies, to kids, and how we react that can really help them manage it. Yeah. How about you? What did you learn today?
Couple things. First thing I learned that if you in a segment with a high-ranking researcher, and the researcher says something and you say, hey, I'm going to go try that out by having more kids, you can absolutely expect to receive a text 8 seconds later in all caps that yells, no more kids. And I think there's 9 exclamation marks I can read there. So that's my partner. Thank you so much. It's interesting. I put out some stuff to social media yesterday. I had a colleague text back their approach to pain, and it sounds an awful lot about similar to what we learned. They said that a doctor once said that during the first scary moment, she's an adoptive parent, is that during the first set of shots is where she would establish her role as the safe place with her kids. And so she actually took a very proactive approach to dealing with the kids and using kind of those pain opportunities. It's a strange thing to say, but those as opportunities to build that bond. And she used kind of the skin-to-skin contact to be able to do that. And she used the talking about it. And just as her kids have grown, she's found that really, really helpful thing. In fact, when her son was, I think, 7 or something along those lines, or 4, there was a moment where, he had kind of gone through an injury, and at the end of that moment, wouldn't really connect with the doctors and that sort of stuff, just wanted mom. And as soon as that soothing place was found, she saw that level of connection was there. So I thought that was a really powerful story and connected a lot with kind of the research that we had seen overall. I thought that was kind of neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's doing the right things. She was doing exactly what her Dr. Campbell-Yeo's research has found, which is amazing.
It's just interesting how you just, again, I think I mentioned this last week, the idea of taking that step back and that more meta look at the way that you manage your kids and things like that everybody should really take that moment, because if you can build that into your structure, and we're learning kind of some of the more common themes, right? Touch is a huge thing. Understanding of emotional intelligence is a huge thing. We did that whole thing on the summer slide where we talked about the opportunity to keep that. And actually this summer I had that opportunity to have one of my kids go into kind of long-term tutoring, seeing the confidence level, which was very, very low at the beginning, very, very high now. So we're taking away some of these really, really great pieces overall.
It's amazing.
A couple things, by the way, if you want to learn more about pain management, we've got some fantastic articles. 4 ways to help kids and you cope with needles. So if you Google that, you'll find that at the parentscanada.com website, recently redesigned. It's fantastic. There's another one about growing pains, 5 fast facts, and we actually see that a fair bit in our house. And then Dr. Campbell-Yeo talked about that YouTube video, The Power of a Parent's Touch.
Yeah, please
watch it.
It's a
minute and a half long. It's and it just your mind explodes. Yeah. I love all of that. So again, drop by Parents Canada magazine's new website, parentscanada.com, for lots and lots and lots of great resources like these.
Yeah, and and please keep in contact with us. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Parents Canada. So keep the conversation going. Even if you have questions after the show, just hit us up, and we'll be able to maybe answer you or direct you. I am Lisa Durante, and I'm here with
Jason Thompson.
Yeah, and you've been listening to Parents Canada Talk Radio on News Talk Saga 960. Thanks for listening.